Hello, this is Scott, your nomadic canine life coach on Hickory Apache in southern New Stolen Land. I am, yes, an uninvited guest, but it's a beautiful area. Can't argue with how beautiful it is. It is a desert, high desert, so which means we do get snow. There is snow out here. We'll give it a few minutes to check in. I'm going to grab my juice. If you have anything to drink, please grab it. I'm going to grab, oh, they're right here. So, cheers. And my big old jug of water that also has cucumber and I forget what else is in it, but it makes it a little bit sweeter, a little bit more flavorful for me. I'm not sure, slow connection. I'm not sure if anybody's going to be able to read this. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to see the comments. That's my main concern. So I'm going to go through. I wrote down everything that he posted on that. I'm going to remember some of the stuff that went through our conversation that he and I had online on his page. Go to his page, Canine Evolution, Bart De Gols. Probably said that wrong and I do apologize. This is about fetch. This has been circulating a lot. And I do like the article, and I think there's a few things we can expand upon with modern research. A little bit nervous because I am using somebody else's stuff, and I don't mean this is a critical fashion, like a lot of my stuff, apparently, because I'm always bashing the R+. This is about fetch, and while we don't need to constantly play it, I do feel this is very important. And a lot of us do. Fetch, I mean, there's a few other places that groups that understand fetch doesn't have to happen. We're going to get into, because this person went into the science of it, focus more on working dogs, which neither here nor there on that one, because the nervous system still works the same way. You want to talk about drive? Well, let's talk about how mice probably have more of a higher dopamine baseline because they live a more nervous lifestyle. Oh, I forgot one pin. I also have my Stop Genocide, and this is for indigenous relatives, but it also goes with Palestine. I have my Fuck White Supremacy. White Supremacy doesn't like me cross-dressing, and I don't give a fuck. I went and got this today at a place in Trinidad called Pleasure Boutique. Had this made for me. They're from Texas. If you're here, let me know whose land you're on. If you're not sure, there's an app, and if I know you, I might be able to figure it out. If I can only get it off. So, put it on this side just because white supremacy does have to do with binary and patriarchy. So, it says they... Oh, I got the wrong one. I'm supposed to say we and him, or we and they. But, so I'm going to go ahead and read this. I've got several pages to read, so give me a... Oh, I can actually see you, Diana. After I read this, if you want to go live with me, you're more than welcome to. We'll see how well this goes. So I'm actually seeing somebody that's watching. That's a first in a while. I see your comment, so that's good. Maybe I had it on private messaging, so it would come up on messages. Anyways. So this article is about fetch and why we don't need to play it. Don't need to play it that often. It's not saying don't do it. This is not saying it's horrible for your dog. In fact, he tries to focus on working dogs with high drive and high arousal dogs. But this is from the Canine Evolution, Bart De Gols. And I probably said that wrong, and I apologize. And I looked through some of his stuff, and I do like a lot of his stuff, because he is really trying to bring more of the science to dog training, which so are we with effective dog behavior. So there's a lot more agreement than disagreement. Trying to stay away from the B word. So I'm going to read several pages of what he has. So bear with me. And there's some where I'm going to interrupt with discussion. So he says, fetch. He has a lot of clients that ask him about fetch and whether they play it or not, and he says, no, you don't have to. And he goes into why, and a lot of people will get are surprised by his comments, and he does get pushback because that's what they do, and it goes into why a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and read this. Fetch. No, we do not need to constantly play it, especially not with working breeds like the Malinois, Golden Shepherd, German Shepherd, Dutch Shepherd, or any other high drive, prey-like hunting dogs, agility dogs, etc. This answer is often met with surprise, oftentimes resistance. I get it. Your dog brings you the ball, eyes bright, body full of energy, practically begging for you to throw it. It feels like exercise. It feels like bonding. It feels like the right thing to do. And absolutely, I get it with people that when they play fetch because the dog likes it, you want to keep doing it. You know, if it means something to your dog, you want to keep doing it. Absolutely, I absolutely understand that. Back to his writing. But from a scientific, behavioral, and neurobiological perspective, it's not. In fact, it's not. In fact, it may be one of the most harmful daily habits for your dog's mental health and nervous system regulation that no one is warning you about. Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. He says daily habits. So that's like, you know, first thing in the morning after your dog goes to the bathroom, you play fetch. And then you end the game there. So let's think about that's the social aspect. Fetch is a social game, even though we try to make it just about the dog, and we can validate it by saying we're getting the dog exercise. We've only got a few minutes to play, so this is a quick one. So we'll get them some exercise, and we'll bond with them this way. So it goes a little further than that. Let me break it down for you in detail. Again, this is his words. This will be long, but if you have a working dog, you need to understand this. And he's not wrong here. Working dogs like the Mal and German Shepherd were selected over generations for an intensity, persistence, and drive to engage in behaviors tied to the prey sequence. This is one of the issues I have with. Hi, Elaine. I am reading from Canine Evolution. Bart De Gols is the one that came up with this, and it's been shared widely. It's about why we don't need to play fetch. So I'm going to read all this. So working dogs like the Mal, German Shepherd, were selected over generations for their intensity, persistence, and drive to engage in behaviors tied to the prey sequence, which is Dr. Roy Coppinger. The orient, stalk, chase, grab, bite, and kill. I have a big issue with that when we're talking about a game called fetch. The key word in that is not fetch, but game, meaning it's play activity. When we talk about Roy Coppinger's prey sequence, the orient, the stalk, the chase, the grab, the bite, the kill, those aren't play aspects. When he was looking at that, those were to get the dog to work, and those were to get the dog to hunt, or how the dog was naturally doing this. That doesn't have to do with play. Play is a different type of mindset. It's an innate urge. It's a social one. So there's social needs that involve this way before the primary prey sequencing. Orient, stalk, chase, grab, bite, kill. And I'll break down why that's not true when it comes to playing fetch either. But we'll continue on. In their roles, police, protection, herding, and military dogs, these genetically encoded motor patterns are partially utilized but directed toward human-defined tasks. And he's absolutely correct. When you look at fetch as a human interactive game, is a human-made game. We have retrievers, yes, but that doesn't start with the ball. They're not, retrieving is not innate. You can be more, what's that word called? Prone to, but it's not innate. You can reinforce, you can interact more when they're retrieving, and that's going to get you more of the behaviors you want. But it usually starts with play. Play is where you start to learn most of your social rules. You can play without somebody. But if a dog's choosing a game with you, it's not for them to hunt, to orient, stalk, chase, grab, bite, and kill. That's not the same thing. Play is completely different from hunting. Different neural system. This is science. You can look at this feel free to see the separation between play and hunting. We used to believe that dogs and animals played to better enhance hunting. Hi, Cheryl, which is not true. Play helps with cooperation. Play helps with learning to live with each other. This is where we learn social rules. This is where we learn what irritates somebody, what helps build confidence, and how to make mistakes safely without having to be like punished and traumatized. Cheers. That doesn't have to do with hunting. Hunting is about eating. That is innate. So when we talk about orient, stalk, chase, grab, kill, bite, that's to learn how that individual, so you can get a leg up on the other individual. So your seeking system is trying to not play. Your seeking system goes into play. Your seeking system is not about, once it's in play, that means it's innate. It's an innate urge that has to happen. That play is something to de-stress, to socially bond, to interact with somebody. When you're seeking to hunt, to get food to eat, to consume, that's even more primary. But it's not the orient, chase, stalk, grab, bite, kill. I said that in misorder. I apologize. So in their role as police protection, herding, military dogs, and it's interesting he used those. Patterns are partially utilized, directed towards human-defined tasks. And yes, training is human-defined tasks. What do I need to get the dog to do? But yes, Malinois and German Shepherds helped with the military and helped with police, but we made them more for using them against other humans, which is completely wrong, which to me is completely unethical. I will die on that hill. Don't even bring it up. I'll ignore it. You can have that conversation, but I'm not on that one. Another point where he brings up that I disagree with. Fetch is an artificial mimicry of the prey sequence. Well, I have to disagree because when you're playing fetch, okay, well, I'll read this whole page and I'll tell you what I like and don't like. Fetch is an artificial mimicry of the, quote, prey sequence, unquote. I added those quotes. Ball equals prey, throwing, movement, stimulus, chase, reinforcement, grab and return equals closure, reward, reinforcement again. Every time you throw the ball, you're not just giving your dog exercise. You are triggering an evolutionary motor pattern that was designed to result in the death of prey. But here is the twist. The, quote, kill bite, unquote, never comes. There's no closure. There's no end. No satisfaction except when the dog starts chewing the ball by themselves, which leads to even more problems. So the dog is left in a state of arousal. Hi, Jessica. Okay, so fetch. Starting from the throw, the anticipation, and he gets into what dopamine does. It's not a reward, but it's the anticipation of, which is absolutely correct. We don't release dopamine when we get the ball. We get dopamine before. Dopamine helps us move, want to be motivated to eat, sleep, sex, socialize, rest. All these things are subcortical. The dog doesn't have to think, do I need to get laid today? No, there's an innate urge for that. Do I need to hump to relax? That's innate. That's the sympathetic nervous system, which we'll get into as well. So the prey sequencing is where I really have a big problem with this. The kill bite, there is no kill bite. There doesn't need to be a kill bite. And he's right as far as when we keep playing fetch with a dog, we're not letting him get into a state of rest. If we're constantly playing until they're exhausted, we see the big pit bull grin, the big wide mouth, we're overstimulating them. What became a social interaction, it became a social game, became an obsession because this is how we choose to play with them. When your dog sees that ball, the brain lights up with dopamine. Anticipation of. In this case, it is positive. Absolutely true. The brain lights up with dopamine. Absolutely true. When you throw it, adrenaline kicks in and other stress neurochemicals. It becomes a cocktail of high arousal and primal intensity. Primal intensity, I don't fully agree with. It's a matter of getting it. I mean, I see it, absolutely see it, because the dog's running fast and it's going to get it to, make it quick. And if there's any competition, I'm going to get it first. Me, 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 me. You don't have to be social. So, and he goes to say, dopamine is not the reward chemical. It is the pursuit chemical. It creates the urge to chase. And I add, amongst other life-keeping urges, again, food, sex, sleep, play, rage, flight. But here's what Dr. Robert Sapolsky says about dopamine. He's probably one of the best people that identifies what it is. Dopamine is not primarily about pleasure or reward, but rather about the anticipation of reward and the motivation to pursue it. This is not quite true. Chase isn't the reward, getting the ball is. If chase were the reward, dopamine increased back to baseline, and the motivation to continue after the ball would not be there anymore. And that's very true. There's a lot of things that I miss on this. So Dr. Robert Sapolsky says, dopamine is not primarily about pleasure or reward. And this is something the dog training industry really needs to think about. But rather about the anticipation of reward and the motivation to pursue it. Again, even what he says, even what Bart says with canine evolution, dopamine is not the reward chemical, it's a pursuit chemical, creates the urge to chase, all subcortically. And like Diana says, if dopamine was the reward, then if chase was the reward, and that was involved because of dopamine, then the chase wouldn't stop. Here's a thing I do have. This is something I learned fairly recently. So he says adrenaline, cortisol spike even though the dog gets the ball. Okay, so cortisol is not released during play. Cortisol is released during fight and flight, which is fear and rage. Play doesn't have cortisol, which I thought it did. I always thought it did, and it doesn't. So, but when you have a spike, and you see, this is what science is showing, there's a spike. Not a hit, but a spike, which means when you see the spike, there's a drop. In order to have a spike, there has to be a point, which means there's been an increase and a decrease. So adrenaline does have that spike. Dopamine has that spike, which means it's starting to decrease. The biological closure never really happens because the pattern is Did I miss something? Okay, even though the dog gets the ball, the biological closure never really happens because the pattern is reset. Because the pattern is reset again and again and again and again. Hi, Nikki. Which is kind of true. So, learning about the autonomous nervous system, you have your sympathetic and you have a parasympathetic. When we get a dog active, movements, anticipation, that's the sympathetic. Period. That's fight, flight, and the other one that people forget is play. What I say is fight, flight, and excitement, because that could be curiosity, that could be anxiety, that could be cautiousness, that could be ready to play. So anything that gets the dog to want to move or getting ready to move or is moving is the sympathetic nervous system. But then we also have the parasympathetic nervous system, and he nails it in this one too. Rest and digest and recovery. Because when you use stress, be it fight, flight, or even excitement, even playing, we are causing stress even at the cell level. Subcortically, this is why this happens way below without us thinking about it. Otherwise, we're not going to remember to breathe. We're not going to increase heart rate to get ready to move. It happens way below to get us ready for these things. So when we see a spike, which means up and then down, you have your sympathetic nervous system, and then you're going to have your parasympathetic nervous system starting to kick in. So your parasympathetic, again, is rest, digest, and recovery. Again, this happens at the cell level, right? So if this happens at the cell level, we have zero control, thought control over the cell level. But if we're causing stress on the body, and it doesn't have to be good, it's just movement. You're lifting weights. Even though that's positive and you're moving and exercising, that still causes stress that has to be recovered from by more proteins, by more amino acids, by all these other things that I don't know how to deal with. Or not deal with, because my body deals without me thinking about it. That's helping the body recover. So, is it making sense so far? And I'm sure it's not, because it's a lot of detail. This guy did some good homework. So I want to address up to this point, knowing that dopamine is not reward. Sympathetic nervous system gets action. When we have a spike, there's a drop. So when we play fetch, right? Let's just picture the dog moving and coming back. So the dog is going forward. They go fast. That's the sympathetic nervous system knowing how much, and the seeking system in doping, knowing how much it needs to use to get the ball, and the brain's already thought of ways to get it back. The muscles, everything's already thought of ways and what it needs to get back, and possibly a few other throws, right? And to stay social, and be aware of its environment. In the same time, so your dog goes and gets the ball. Notice they don't run as fast back, a little more satisfactory. That's the parasympathetic nervous system has kicked in. It's been a little bit more influential, meaning even though we have the sympathetic to go out, the parasympathetic's coming in on the way back. And this is what I really pay attention to when I'm working with the dog on fetch, or playing with the dog, or interacting with the dog, be it aggressive, be it fearful. I watch the parasympathetic nervous system. If a dog's reactive, absolutely, it's in sympathetic. I know that. When is the parasympathetic kicking in? When is the one for the rest, digest, and recovery kicking in? And you'll see it through fetch. You'll see it through ball play. You'll see it through stick chasing. You'll see it in chewing. You'll see it in their breathing pattern. You'll see it on the lips, on the side of the lips, what I call the gills, and you see those little wrinkles. You'll see it when the dog looks at you with their tongue sticking out. You'll see it when you go to grab the ball and the dog's slobber is thicker and drier. That means the parasympathetic nervous system is working on recovery from that stress already happened. Stress being the play. This play is not a predatory sequence. It is not a prey sequence. It is not the orient, and it's not that stuff to hunt. It is to continue a social game. Dogs will be aggressive because they're with other dogs. If you play fetch at a dog park and you see people doing this, another dog comes and steals the ball and they get mad at that other dog, they're resource guarding a game them and their human are playing with. Their trusted source. That other individual wasn't involved. That's oxytocin. Makes you defensive to outsiders. That's why you can see them snap and they come right back to being happy. They didn't have to fight, just enough to push to be defensive, which is the rage system, to get back to being social. Now, the other aspect that I like that Bart is talking about canine evolution is this is an everyday thing. If you're, I don't know why I'm making myself fuzzy. All of a sudden my camera wants to focus and unfocus. So he's talking about playing fetch as an everyday thing. One of the most important aspects of this is it's a social game, meaning there's an underlying social need. That social need is you. And yes, a lot of times the dog's all excited. Grab the ball, throw it. Grab a stick, throw it up. Let him have it. Play chase a little bit. And then offer something else. Your dog's starting to look tired. It's time to care for their needs. It's not, we separate ourselves. We think this is the exercise the dog needs because it's a border collie. It's because it's a pointer. Because it's Jack Russell, because it's a Malinois, because it's a working breed. Take away the purebreds, you have the same nervous system in every single species. Take away just that purebred aspect, that working aspect, and that arousal. Most of that arousal comes from when we're around. So a dog understands that in order to get my needs met, I need to increase my own dopamine to get them to get me outside, and I have to anticipate how long that's going to take. Think about when you're coming home and you're like, I got to go to the bathroom. Your body's already anticipating it's going to take 15, 20 minutes to get home. You might look, say, okay, maybe there's a bathroom close. Yet, nope, I don't like that gas station. I'll wait till I get home. So you made that choice to get home. The dog, we train our dogs to go potty, get our attention, social, to help them go outside. If we're not, and let's say we do it the first time they come to show us, I gotta go potty, or everything we did to body train them, be it the bell, be it the scratching at the door, being it barking at you, being it jumping on your lap, bringing you the ball. They bring you the ball, that's because they have realized, they've looked at you, saw that you're working, saw that they need to do something dramatic to get us to pay attention. Increasing their dopamine, which means they're getting meaning they're in their sympathetic nervous system, but yet they have to go potty. Potty helps you feel better. It helps you with your parasympathetic nervous system. Rest, digest, your immune system comes back online a little bit more. It's not waiting, and all those things happen for a reason. So when we focus on constantly playing fetch every single day, we have to think about what influence are we having on that dog's daily routine of constantly, and especially if it's the first thing you do in the morning, of what you are doing with your dog for the rest of the day. Not to mention, like, even humans have a circadian rhythm, right? If we listen to that, we probably have a lot less behavioral issues, quotes, behavioral issues, unquote. But understanding that we are designed a certain way as well. Dogs are designed a certain way for best to help them survive and thrive in nature, not in cities, but more so in nature. They can adjust and adapt to cities they always have. So if you're constantly playing ball with your dog and every time they see you, they know they have to increase their own dopamine, which is going to release more adrenaline. They're going to play more. And if that's the only way you play with them or interact with them, you are rewiring the brain. And then and a lot of times when you see behavioral problems because a human finds it as an issue, right? Oh, my dog's ball obsessed. All we can do is play and we can't stop the dog from playing. Well, that's kind of the drive and stamina you wanted, especially if you have a working dog. And like he even says, watching from Treaty 6, Stolen Land. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. The problem, most owners never help the dog come down from that state. No decompression, no parasympathetic nervous system activation. That's wrong, because the parasympathetic nervous system is always trying to be influential at some point. It's innate. It's subcortical. We can't control it. We can highly influence it, but we are not going to say, hey, this behavior, if I do this, this is absolutely going to make it come on. That's not how that works. We can look for the signs and then go, you're getting tired. We're going to try and rest soon. We're going to try and do some other stuff to get you to want to calm down. No transitioning to rest. And that's very true. I see this with laser lights with dogs. Hi, Patricia. I see that with laser lights with dogs. We get the dogs so aroused that we're like, oh crap, we might lose control of the dog's emotional states. They're becoming obsessive. They're panting. They're doing these things that I don't feel comfortable with, which is an emotional reaction from us by seeing our friend is not capable. So we stop the game. We think we can control it because the dog is less than. We think the dog is less than, they'll just turn it off. But the problem is when you have dopamine that high and you have adrenaline that high, and in pursuit of something, what ends up happening is, and you just shut it off at a high state of arousal, you're not just going to just come down from it. It's like being upset and somebody say, just relax. Doesn't work that way. So when you have a high rate of dopamine, you have a tendency to go into not just obsession, but possibly mania. And then certain things will trigger you, of course. Oh, was that a fly? I had that shepherd. She had a birthmark on her tongue, and when it got close to her front teeth, that was a limit, and we would wind down. All these little things we understand, and we may not recognize it, but we in the moment, but we'll start to see the patterns because we're observing, because we'll start to see, oh, I don't fully like this, so let me try to work through this, or let me try to fix this, or let me problem solve. And this is what we all do. This is what dogs will try and do. But the problem with it with dogs is they are reliant on us for their social and emotional needs. And if this is the only way they can get us to interact with them, it has a more of a social reward than it does taking care of your own physical needs. You see this a lot with kids. You're hungry, you're tired. I can see everything in your body language that says you need rest. Come on, let's go rest. But if they're busy playing and having fun, that's going to override them listening to themselves. And then what ends up happening, and this is the thing we got to remember, the brain wants to reset itself based on what it learned, so it can predict for the future. So if you're living through a lot of stress, the brain's going to anticipate that. We can go through things called dopamine depletion. We can sit there, and if we're constantly on high energy, eventually we're going to crash. No different than drinking an energy drink, surviving off that, and then as soon as when it's gone and you don't have anything else to do, your brain goes, cool, I'm shutting off. It's not that it's shutting off, nothing shuts off, it's just more oxygen goes to certain places and then decreases. The brain is always on. Certain parts light up with more oxygen. That's why they see it on the fMRI. That when all that extra stuff is done, met its match and it's used, your brain goes and your body goes, the parasympathetic nervous system says, fuck you, I'm taking over. When you've been stressed at work for weeks on end and you postpone and postpone taking care of yourself, and your brain and your body go, guess what? And you go on vacation, your work doesn't even make you mad, you're too busy looking forward to, took for that stress, that distress of work to that eustress of vacation. And as soon as you get on vacation, you take that big old deep breath, lay back on the bed, your body said, guess what? You've got an infection. We've been holding it. The immune system's been keeping it there. Cortisol's been keeping that inflammation there until we are safe enough to fight it. Then you get sick. This is where our reactive dogs come from. This is where our dogs that are so hyped up that when they finally rest, they're going to be more reactive because they need to be emotionally vulnerable. He calls it chronic sympathetic dominance, and I kind of agree with that. I mean, that's not a bad term because the sympathetic nervous system is more dominant, especially when it comes to a social interaction. And if your dog's with you and you go hiking with your dog and you play with your dog and you do all these fun activities with your dog and you don't really sit and rest with your dog, or you don't sit and enjoy anything, it is a sympathetic dominance. It leads to the panting to a point. But the pacing, the immobility to settle down, yeah, if they're always with you and the only thing they can really do is to constantly move and move and move and move and want to move and want to move, it's not that you're not fulfilling their need. It's the fact that we've given them so much anticipation that when it's time for them to settle with us, they don't know what to do. It makes them very uncomfortable. So we get destructive behaviors. Okay, a lot of these destructive behaviors, this goes way back. But one great example of a dog trainer doing this was Dr. Ian Dunbar with the frozen Kongs. When you go to leave, the dog's in stress, and they start licking, instead of being destructive on the couch or destructive on your clothes or your remote control or your game system, you give them something else to chew on, and that chewing increases endogenous opioids, takes away, helps them with that emotional pain. Hypervigilance, dogs constantly looking and looking and looking. If you don't go interact with them when they're wanting to hang out, or if they're just hanging out with you, we're leaving them in a state of arousal. We are leaving them, or we're focusing on so much of arousal and drive because we have this certain breed that we're not meeting the parasympathetic needs. We're not looking at the parasympathetic needs. We're not even understanding how influential it is, especially when we say dogs are supposed to rest 18 hours a day. But when they're with us, we want them to do scent work, we want them to do this, we want them to do this, we want them to do this. When almost all that stuff that we do with, the dog sees it as a game with us. It sees us as interaction with us. But if I keep making them move and want to do more and more and more and more, they start to understand that they get rewired, like he says here, they get rewired to understand that this is how my human interacts with me. And that's not always the healthiest thing. Even with working dogs, border collies. Any person with a border collie that works their border collies understands that they have a farm to run. The border collies are not catching cows all the time or herding them into the thing. It goes at a certain time. You can go out to the country anywhere where there's cows and you're going to see cows just eating grass and not a border collie around. Not a Great Pyrenees around. And you'll see cows when it comes time for dinner. What are they doing? They're walking back in herd to go back to food. These border collies were meant to get them from long distances. These border collies were meant to get them so they didn't run off. So we had 1,600 head of cattle going into the truck. We had 1,600 head of cattle going from Texas to Wyoming. Several weeks and several days. They did not work 24/7 during that time. The dog would die. And then you would get a dog that would work for several hours and then pass out. A dog that would... Dogs understand when it's time to work. They're ready for it, absolutely. Anticipation, the seeking system. Okay, if dad's working, mom's working, I'm ready to do it too. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it a lot. So, you get your poor sleep cycles, you get your digestive issues, which is true. So the other thing too is, some of the signs we have of the parasympathetic nervous system coming on is lip licks, is panting. Because they're trying, especially after stress or lots of stimulation or arousal, because now they're starting to rest and recover. So it's just like when you run, you start to pant. You don't pant while running. You're trying to, your brain and your body's trying to get you, your sympathetic nervous system is trying to get you into a pattern to help you with the endurance of this run you're going through. But afterwards, what do you see most of the runners do on the Olympics or at schools? They slow it down. They lift their arms up. They take big exhales. They don't keep taking sharp intakes. They keep trying to exhale to get that carbon dioxide out, to push the diaphragm. That is a parasympathetic response, nervous system response. Because now it's time to relax until the next run. Dopamine helps you understand there's going to be a next run in 30, 40 minutes. Hi, Elena. Our dopamine system can go for years and decades. I'm going to graduate in the year 2036. I'm going to do this. That's part of our dopamine system. Dogs, not so much as that we can tell. And you get behavioral burnout. Dopamine depletion. You've worked them so much that they can't anymore. Now there's some more important stuff that he talks about. So a lot of these things that I said are natural ways to recover from the stress of playing, of rage, of fear. So you see a dog bark, lunge, and then run back to you. Where am I going with this? I'm reading what he has and I'm discussing it in between. Why we don't need to constantly play fetch with our dogs. And what it does to the brain. Because he has some good information, but some of it is a little bit... I'm trying to help expand upon it. I'm not trying to tear it apart because this is a great article of stuff that we need to think about. But a lot of these things are ways to recover from that stress that just happened. Your rage system, your fear system are not supposed to be, like he actually says, sympathetic dominant. Well, he says chronic sympathetic dominance, which absolutely makes sense. If we're constantly making the nervous system go and go and go and go, that's chronic stress. That's your sympathetic nervous system constantly trying to move, keep you moving or thinking or doing. And it's dominant. meaning your parasympathetic nervous system's not able to come online either, or be influential, because it's always online. It's a teeter-totter, a seesaw. So if you're always up here, hyper movement, you can get into mania. Not just obsession, but mania. And your parasympathetic nervous system's down here, and it's trying to be influential, but we are influencing the dog. We keep trying to make the dog do more, when the brain's trying to say, okay, I'm done, but I'm done. What are we going to do next? So the dog just anticipates we're going to do a lot more with the dog. In essence, we are creating a dog that neurologically is trapped in the, quotes, primal mind, unquote, always hunting, never resting. So there's the other part I have about that. When you're playing fetch, it is not a hunting instinct. It is not. It is a play game. It is a social interactive game with you. It's not hunting. And yes, the other part he has right is never resting. If I'm always playing until they're tired and then I take them out, they rest by themselves, not with me. Well, in the high state of arousal, as you're learning, you're also learning what it takes. What is a human? Where's my trusted source that just had all this fun with me? Where are they at when I need them to emotionally recover? Where am I at in my state of recovery? A lot of people know, especially that are in recovery, people that have gone through a lot of emotional pain, where is my friends? Are they here with me when I need them? When I'm emotionally vulnerable? No, but they're kind of close. Okay. Sometimes that's good enough. A lot of times it's not. And again, he goes back to, when fetch becomes a daily routine, your dog begins to expect it, and it's no longer fun. That's very important. When fetch becomes a daily routine, they expect it, and it's no longer fun. This is why sometimes you enjoy cake, and then other times you're like, I just don't. Don't even fucking bring it up. That's supposed to happen. But if we're still trying to play that game with them, which means there's a social underlying need, but it's not as fun with them, it's become such an expectation that it becomes a problem. It's a conditioned need, and when that happens, that conditioned need isn't met. That conditioned need of, this is how I'm going to interact with you and meet your needs. And if you don't play it anymore because you find it a problem, it's not that they go through extinction bursts. Extinction bursts are still important. I know we don't like having that because they're negative and we want to keep everything positive with the dog, but we got to understand how the nervous system works. So if we have an extinction burst, then we need to understand that there's going to be a recovery process. Through all of this, through every single stage we have with our dogs, there's always a recovery process. And what happens when those needs are not met? Constant stress, frustration, obsession. And when they can't, it may lead to chasing shadows, lights, children, cats, dogs, cars. Yes, especially in those situations where they're supposed to play with your dog, or they're go to a place where you're supposed to play, or where you guys interact a lot more. And if they're anticipating something that if your sympathetic nervous system is ready for, and it doesn't happen, you have these neurochemicals already released in your body, ready to be used. So how are we going to use it? A lot of us become smartasses. And if dogs get punished for being a smartass, they play too rough, or they grab stuff, or a lot of times dogs will grab something really fast. That's that spike. Remember, the spike goes up to be released. So they can spin around and do the zoomies and then want to come back down. Meaning they're using those stress neurochemicals. This is how pathological patterns form. Especially with dogs, because they're reliant on us to get their social and emotional needs met. And if we don't see those as social and emotional needs versus exercise or breed expectations, or because I have a working dog and you have a show dog, and most of this happens with Malinois, German Shepherds, Dutch Shepherds, people will use these type of working dogs because they use it with the police standard, which is not okay. And here's another point he says, throwing a ball 100 times does not tire out a working dog. wires them tighter. It builds up stamina. If it builds up them stamina, as we get older, our stamina decreases, especially if we have a busy life and we have something else to do. But if this is the only way you interact with your dog, and it's one of the most fulfilling socially for you and your dog, meaning you guys rest together, you guys are get up in the morning and you guys get out and go do your routine and go have all this extra excitement and go do this and this and this and this, then, and especially doing all this other, especially training, trying to use that as motivation or trying to use that as stimulation or trying to use it to increase arousal, you're increasing dopamine. Your dog's going to start expecting that. And the other aspect we get wrong with working dogs is that they work all the time. They don't. A lot of dogs that work all the time are the ones that we don't want. Those are the ones you constantly have to be doing something with, and it's not a money maker. Those dogs are not money makers. The bonding happens not just through play. And it's not like you automatically bond with the dog because you're playing, because one, the dog has to have that urge, which means they have to feel safe enough to play. Two, if we're making it our game and we're using their need to fulfill our need, to fill our desire, our expectation, our wants, we're not meeting them in their needs. We have a German short here at the police station. This dog is nuts. He wants a tennis ball all the time and it's ridiculous. He barks at you for it. The officers constantly with him. That's because they keep wanting to play. That's the interaction he gets from those people. And a lot of times, dogs aren't allowed to put their mouths on you. A lot of times, nothing is going to be stimulating enough. I've had German short hair pointers. Name a breed. Sean can tell you. We've had every breed in doggy daycares. We've had police dogs and they're trained with e-collars. And we still got them to play. We had dogs that were obsessed with laser lights. And they knew to be obsessed with certain people, but not with us. And we had to work through some of those issues by actually playing laser light with these dogs and starting to do a cool down period. And that's one way you can help your dog, is have a cool down period. If they're highly aroused, cool. Last one. We're going to start settling. In that high state of arousal, back to some of these other arguments I have online, we're trying to teach them something. Meaning we think they can't learn. They absolutely can learn in a high state of arousal. But the higher the state of arousal, the more we're going to have to give them what they need to get them some sort of satisfaction to want to calm down. Now, he says cortisol is released. And I do believe cortisol is released when it's a higher state of frustration, trying to get us to interact, or trying to get the game to play, or trying to get, stuff like that. Yeah, you can bond during play, but if you're not there when somebody really needs you in a negative situation or recovery, they're going to understand you're not emotionally available for them. That can break the relationship bank, no matter how positive you make it. If you're not there for somebody when they're emotionally needing you, that's going to break your relationship bank. And you're probably going to be overdrawn. How many, I don't know, there's a lot of people that, me especially, when I really needed somebody, I felt safe enough, and actually wasn't even safe enough, I finally eventually listened to myself when I was ready to off myself, unalive myself, whatever is not going to get me blocked. I went deep into my phone book. Because anybody else I knew either already had a family and I didn't want to disturb them with this, and was asleep, and also I didn't trust because they wanted to have fun all the time. They wanted to go drinking. They wanted to go party. Nobody would sit and listen to me when I needed it, which I let go on for way too long. And a lot of other societal factors went into that one. But your dogs are emotional, social creatures first. Period. Yes, they can survive the wild without you. But they're social. They're going to find a way to connect with something in their environment. Maybe it's another coyote. Maybe it's a coyote. Not another, because we don't have a coyote here. Maybe it's the birds. Maybe it's the neighbor. In the meantime, they're waiting for you to get home, or they're trying to do something else. Maybe it is that mailman they see all the time, because that's the only person they see. But fetch, we got to remember. So fetch is a man-made game. I agree, over 1,000 dogs, every breed, or almost every breed. Yeah. And it's like, how many... Sean and I worked at a big-ass fucking doggy daycare. I think it was the second biggest in the Bay Area. We had multiple pens. We had a big-ass yard. So we got at least 3 major companies that would bring their dogs to us. Bring their employees, bring their dogs to us. Christmas time, we were fucking packed. But we were one of the last to deny reservations because we knew we could always come up with room. We'd build extra fences. We knew how big the yard was. We knew how big the areas were. We knew people had needs. And we had open play groups, and not all dogs got along. Yes, we had arguments. But we understood more about meeting those dogs' needs than just sitting there trying to enrich their lives. Because a lot of those, we had several from a biotech. There was 3 biotech companies in South City. 2 that I know off the top of my head. I always forget the third one. Or maybe there's only 2. That used beagles. And the employees got first dibs of the beagles when they were hit a certain age and they couldn't do anything else. Well, because people worked every fucking day, we got those beagles. We were the second and third time they ever hit the ground, saw grass, smelled other dogs. And at doggy daycare, there's a lot of smells. It's overwhelming. But that stress helps you feel better. But we have to remember, stress isn't just about feeling it and recovering for the next time. It's about being able to recover from that stress with somebody. And when we play games with dogs, and we're constantly trying to keep them hyper, we're in the sympathetic nervous system. We're constantly staying in a state of arousal, especially if the dog understands this is how I get you to pay attention. This goes with spins. This goes with high-intensity barking. This goes with the zoomies. If I have to keep my dog in a high state of arousal, they're never really going to be able to be in their parasympathetic nervous system with me. Even though I can see the panting, even though I can feel that drool being really thick, and it doesn't matter what breed. Cane Corso, Newfies, Mastiffs. Drool change is based on internal needs, subcortical needs. So if my dog had a really, normal drool, and then 5 minutes of playing a game, the drool is going to change. It's going to change with the temperature, because that helps with all kinds of different things, not just internal regulation, but the drool will, just like, what do they call it? A swamp cooler. Hot air will cool down when it hits the drool and goes back in. And then everything else, that's why you'll see the bigger pit bull grin, and you don't want to play fetch when the dogs, or play a lot of games when the dog's in the heat. And dogs will get hotter faster during play. You have to remember these things. We need to look, as an industry, we need to look more at the parasympathetic nervous system. Affective dog behavior can help you with that. I can help you with that. The team that I work with can help you with that. And a lot of these things you already know, you're just not sure of what to do with. Because this goes back at least 40,000 years with dogs. It also goes back for as long as any humanoid has been on this planet. Be it Neanderthals, the Denisovans, and any of the other hominoids that have existed. Because every single one had to take care of each other. Every single one comforted each other. Every single one of them had the ability to laugh. So far, they're finding out everybody's had the ability to be creative. Nothing has really set us apart except for the timeline that they've been here versus what we've been here. Homo sapiens have been on the planet for the least amount of time compared to Neanderthals, compared to almost any other humanoid species. Dogs, yes, we created the breeds, but we didn't create the canids. There was dogs here before, even North America, where actually they think they started. Just like horses, we're here. Our flora and fauna during the Ice Age and before the Ice Age was beautiful. It still is. It was amazing. They just found bones of a dire dog that was 7 feet tall. 7 meters? 7 feet? I don't remember. Very tall. Bigger than the saber-toothed tigers. I got you, Roxy. Do you need your bone? Does Blue, you can get your bone. Blue doesn't have it. You gave it to him. Blue doesn't want your toy. Thank you. Roxy has a ball now because Blue plays with it. She has other toys she gets to chew on. Here's another thing too. So another sign your dog's in its parasympathetic nervous system, chewing. If it's repetitive, it's increasing endogenous opioids. So if your dog's all excited, like you saw your dog and they're all excited because you finally got up and said, "Fine, we're going to go outside," and then you see them chewing on something, you're like, "Oh, I guess they don't need to go outside." They're calming themselves down until they can get outside. That's the parasympathetic nervous system waiting for us before it needs to increase that dopamine and adrenaline. The dopamine's already released, anticipating. Because, and I'll quote it from Dr. Robert Sapolsky, dopamine is not primarily about pleasure or reward, but rather about the anticipation of reward and the motivation to pursue it. That is from Dr. Robert Sapolsky. Same one that says there's no free will. Same one that says why zebras don't get ulcers. And he's got like half a dozen books. And the beauty of Robert Sapolsky is he talks with Jane Goodall. He communicated with Franz de Waal when he was alive. He talks with Dr. David Meach. He talked with Dr. Panskep. And I'm pretty sure if Panskep wrote emails to Skinner, I'm sure Panskep talked to Skinner as well. So all these neuroscientists discuss things with each other. Not just because they have a podcast or just because somebody emailed somebody else, but because they actually talk. Sapolsky goes and spends his time with baboons. And that's an interesting conversation he has. But this thing about fetch is we don't need to play constantly. It does not stimulate the prey instinct. It does not make a dog want to go hunting. It means it wants to go find the ball. That's it. You can help it with hunting, but if you don't hunt with your dog, and if you actually go hunting with your dog, that means you're hunting with your dog. Fetch, when they're chasing the ball, is solo. They bring it back, it's social. Waiting for you to throw it is social. So it's them releasing energy to go get what you threw to keep the game going between you and them. That's what that is. It is a play mindset, mind you. Some dogs are a lot better at it than others, but most dogs, if you watch youngsters play, it's not fetch. It's not with the ball. It's chase, it's wrestling, it's tug, it's hide and seek. It's, yes, they do stalk, they pounce, and then they run away. That's not for hunting. None of that is going to help them hunt. Think about these things. I like, the article was great, but as with effective neuroscience, effective dog behavior, there's things that we do miss in the dog industry, and that is our influence on the daily interactions with dogs. And he nailed it great. If you're always playing fetch with your dog, you're rewiring your dog's brain to only be that way with you, which is going to cause problems. And we see it with obsession, with mania. We don't want to admit mania with dogs, but it happens. And my dog can't do anything else but pay attention to that one thing. It's probably because that's going to get them to interact with me. Not because it's a breed need. Because they don't get around, they don't hang out together and go, "Hey, you're a German Shepherd? We must be police dogs." Hello. That's not how that works. Police dogs for protection and crowd control, and that's some racist shit. Okay, I'm just gonna leave that there. That is not a standard for a dog. Dogs don't give a shit about chasing people down and biting them. That's something we want them to do. And if you really look back at the industry and how it started, it's racist as hell, and it was done positively with a negative outcome. Gingers_naps discuss it very well. I can get into it. I love getting into it. I don't like bringing attention to them, but they have courses. They will sit and you pay it, and they will give you the information. This is part of their work. But what dogs have always been part of is teamwork. Always have been part of teamwork with us. Teamwork, companionships first. The jobs came second, if not third. But beneath all of that is the same basic needs. It's just, what did I decide I wanted to use these dogs for? Well, it's not working great on my farm, so I like this. This one likes to chase a lot. This one likes to has a better recall or whatever else. I'm going to use those. And then we started to learn, if I keep making them want to do this and this and this, and usually by limiting interaction to us and making this more positive than that, we were able to coerce them into being more of this type of dog. When we only focus on that specific type of dog or those specific types of behaviors, we're ignoring the needs of the dog. If I only pay attention to you when you're hyper, you're going to be hyper looking for me, and eventually you're going to go to me and go, I don't want to hang out. I can't hang out right now. Because all I do is bring you stress. Positive stress, but sometimes it's overwhelming. That's why some dogs don't want to play fetch, because it's not supposed to be as rewarding as the last time. You're never going to recreate the same situation you did before or have those exact same feelings. That's why sometimes we love cake, chocolate cake, and other times we're in the mood for strawberry, because that chocolate cake didn't seem as appealing, because it's not supposed to. So that's my spiel. Again, I like this article by Canine Evolution. Bart De Gols, D-E space G-O-L-S. I just want people to understand that the parasympathetic nervous system is going to want to come online just as much as the sympathetic, but we do not look for it because we, humans, in the dog world, are not conditioned to look for it because we're not taught to look for it, even though it naturally, completely always happens. If you're stressed, you start doing this without thinking about it, start wringing your hands, start playing with your hair, start grabbing stuff, start looking around, don't want to make eye contact with somebody, that is your brain trying to calm yourself down until you can de-stress. We're always going like this. Sometimes it's this way, sometimes it's this way. Even in our sleep. So, any questions? Oh, I need my water. My voice is a little rough because I am getting over a cold. So. I'm going to end this, and I don't know how. I don't have a timer. They should put the clock. Still allow you to have your clock when you're live. And believe it or not, I've got more people now than I have in a really long time. All right, last one, Roxy, and then we'll go potty. We'll go potty soon, Blue. I know. So. Yeah, true. I think it's very important to get a dog, read about what that breed was created for. After that, there's a check into your lifestyle first. Yeah, because a lot of people want to get a dog that says, my parents had a border collie. I had a border collie growing up, but I live in an apartment, or I'm not going to be home, or da-da-da-da. You know, it's... And especially if you start training it to be that type of lifestyle, and then your life changes. So if you're always trying to, I want to go out hiking all the time, and this dog will motivate me to go do more stuff, and then you don't fulfill that, but you've started to live that lifestyle for it, you're setting the dog up for failure. And you're setting that dog up to be, you're going to end up having a lot of guilt, because you're eventually going to realize that you can't keep the dog, but you're bonded with the dog, and all this is natural. But you're going to start accidentally regretting your having that dog and not being able to, and just being shamed and guilt, because now you don't feel like you can provide for what you thought that dog was going to be for. And yes, dogs have developmental stages. And yes, they're terrors for a reason. While they're learning their behaviors, learning how to live a life with you, and in whatever world you live in. While still trying to go through brain developmental stages. Adolescents, teenagers, those are natural, and that's a whole nother discussion. But if we're only focusing on interacting with our dogs when they're in their sympathetic nervous system, we're not doing our dogs justice. And this guy talks about it pretty well. We just got to understand that the parasympathetic nervous system wants to come on, be more influential than we realize, especially in the dog world, because we like to see progress. We like to see productivity. We like to use motivation for a goal that we have for our dog based on its breed needs. I'm going to reward you with affection. I'm going to use your want to play to teach you how to do this, versus just using play as an innate urge. Dog wants to play. It's a need, not a way to be educational. You can teach educational stuff because you know the dog's wanting to learn, and you can make mistakes that way. So, this is Scott. I'm going to be in Texas most of next month. Starting Friday, I'll be in Texas. Lubbock area. I forget what the town. It's just west of Texas. West of Lubbock. Loveland or something like that. Loveland. So, anyways. I'll give this a few minutes. Do you need to go potty? Alright, let's go outside. Give this a few minutes and let me post questions. I'm going to let my two out for a minute. Oh, my knees hurt. Alright, ready? Hold on. Let me see. Alright, go ahead. Look. You can go. Remember Jack the Jack Russell Terrier, crazy, but after you learn the specific breed and what they're created for, he was easy. And learning the basics of what they're trying to tell us. The most basic of needs, not even what they're created for. Because below all that, even breed specifics, there's always social and emotional needs. We've created the breeds be based on our needs, our physical needs for work. But once we start meeting those needs, we can actually slow dogs down. We can work backwards, so to speak. Because we think evolution means we created a better dog. Having a Malinois doesn't mean you have a better dog or a better working dog. It means you've been able to manipulate nature for whatever purpose you have. So if we look at them as a tool, they're no better than a crescent wrench. It's not going to work in every single situation, but it's nice to have. But at the same time, if I just leave you as a crescent wrench, I'm not fulfilling your needs. If I actually meet your needs, we might be able to have a different type of lifestyle together. Alright. Blue wants me to go outside with him, so I'm going to end this. Thank you all very much for joining. I appreciate you. And if you can, watch this within 30 days. Because Facebook is deleting lives after 30 days. It doesn't matter. All your past lives are probably going to be deleted if you don't download them. So, it doesn't matter anymore. Have a great night. I appreciate everybody. Or morning, wherever you're at.